You guys met in Canada, right?
Yeah.
And were you already doing comedy separately before you?
No.
No?
We were doing...
We were doing other things. He was...
How Cheech and Chong accidentally created comedy history you won't believe, their first meeting. Cheech Marin, the legendary comedian and actor, always had a way of turning everyday life into a laugh-out-loud story. In his life before meeting Chong was a mixture of chaos, curiosity, and a constant craving for humor. Before fame, Cheech was just a young guy growing up in Los Angeles, the son of a working-class family with a personality that demanded attention. His love for comedy started early, with little pranks and impressions that could make anyone double over in laughter. He spent countless hours observing people, absorbing their quirks, the way they spoke, the way they moved, and the little details that most people overlooked. Cheech was always searching for the spark, that elusive moment when ordinary life turned into comedy gold. Meanwhile, Tommy Chong, the laid-back tall, shaggy-haired Canadian, was wandering his own path. Chong had a completely different vibe, one that was relaxed, free-spirited, and tinged with the hazy world of music and cannabis culture. He was an artist in the truest sense, traveling around, playing music, experimenting with different sounds, and living life on a completely different wavelength from anyone else around him. Both of them were orbiting the Los Angeles comedy scene, though from opposite directions, unknowingly destined to collide. The story of their first meeting is not just funny. It's absurd, serendipitous, and exactly the kind of story that sounds too perfect to be true, yet it really happened. It begins in the late 1960s, a time when the world was shifting rapidly, music was exploding, and counterculture was becoming a force that could not be ignored. Cheech was performing in small clubs, doing stand-up routines, and hustling to get noticed. He had a reputation for being bold, outrageous, and unapologetically honest, traits that would later define the Cheech and Chong brand. Chong was making music, dabbling in recording, and slowly building a reputation as a chill, creative guy who was deeply respected in underground circles for his artistry. The universe had plans for them, and it nudged them together in the most unlikely way. One day, Cheech was invited to a party in Los Angeles, a scene buzzing with eccentric artists, musicians, and performers. The kind of party where everyone was experimenting, where everyone was trying to outdo one another with wit, creativity, or sheer audacity. Cheech was ready to perform a little skit he had been developing, a short comedy routine inspired by everyday life in LA. He arrived with his usual flair, cracking jokes as he navigated the crowd, eyes constantly scanning for the next laugh or the next person who would appreciate his brand of humor. In a corner of that sprawling house, surrounded by music equipment and scattered papers, sat Tommy Chong casually strumming his guitar and exhaling clouds of smoke that seemed to drift lazily in perfect rhythm with the music. Chong's presence was unassuming yet magnetic. He had a way of making people feel relaxed just by existing in the same room. His eyes, half closed from either contemplation or smoke, caught Cheech's attention immediately. Cheech, always on the lookout for unique personalities, approached Chong with curiosity and a little mischief in his step. "Hey man," Cheech said, leaning over slightly to catch Chong's attention. "You play that thing pretty smooth. Ever think about putting some comedy into it?" Chong looked up slowly, a grin spreading across his face, and replied in that distinctive, relaxed tone, "Comedy? Huh, man, I might be up for that." The exchange was brief, yet electric, the kind of instant connection that only happens once in a lifetime. Cheech, feeling the spark of something special, decided to push a little further. He launched into a short, improvised bit right there, weaving together observations of life, exaggerated characters, and a slightly absurd storyline that had everyone around laughing uncontrollably. Chong, in his calm, composed way, laughed too, a deep, resonant chuckle that confirmed this guy was something different. That laugh was the seal of approval Cheech needed, and it was the beginning of a partnership that would soon explode into something legendary. After that initial interaction, Cheech and Chong started talking more seriously about collaborating. They discovered that, despite their different approaches, their senses of humor complemented each other perfectly. Cheech was sharp, fast-talking, and precise, while Chong was improvisational, laid back, and brilliantly offbeat. Together, we could take a simple idea and turn it into a chaotic, hilarious masterpiece. They spent hours talking, sharing stories about their childhoods, their dreams, and the absurdity of the world around them. Cheech recounted stories of growing up in East LA, the colorful characters he had encountered, and the ridiculous situations he had found himself in, while Chong shared tallies of traveling, music gigs, in the slightly mystical world of creativity and inspiration he inhabited. The stories flowed effortlessly, punctuated by laughter and occasional smoke-filled pauses, creating a rhythm that neither of them had experienced with anyone else. Soon, they decided to test their chemistry with small performances at local clubs and coffee houses. Their first shows were experimental, a mix of music, comedy, and improvisation that often left audiences bewildered yet thoroughly entertained. The performances were unpredictable, chaotic, and outrageously funny, with Cheech's sharp comedic timing paired with Chong's mellow, unpredictable antics. It was in these early performances that they realized their humor had the potential to resonate with a much larger audience. They started to dream bigger, imagining albums, tours, and eventually movies. But all of it started from that simple, serendipitous meeting at a crowded party where two very different people discovered an instant connection and a shared comedic vision. Cheech often reflects on that first meeting with a sense of awe, marveling at how a few words, a shared laugh, and a random party encounter could shape an entire career and cultural phenomenon. Chong echoes the sentiment, emphasizing the importance of timing, chance, and chemistry. Neither of them could have predicted that this meeting would lead to decades of iconic comedy, albums that would define a generation, and movies that remain hilarious even today. Their story is a testament to the magic of collaboration, the unpredictable power of humor, and the importance of being open to connections in the most unexpected places. It's the kind of story that feels like fate, yet is grounded in the reality of two people meeting, laughing, and recognizing a kindred spirit in each other. From that day forward, Cheech and Chong were inseparable creatively. Their work began to take on a unique identity, blending stoner culture, absurd situations, and a reflection of the social climate with comedy that was unapologetic, outrageous, and endlessly entertaining. Fans were drawn not only to the humor, but to the chemistry between them, the natural flow of dialogue, and the seamless interaction that only comes from genuine connection. Their first meeting was not just a funny anecdote, it was the seed from which a legendary comedy partnership grew. A partnership that would influence generations of comedians, inspire countless artists, and leave a permanent mark on popular culture. The magic of Cheech and Chong's story lies not only in the humor, but in the authenticity. There was no pretense, no forced collaboration, just two people who found in each other a mirror, a companion, and a collaborator. Their friendship and comedic genius were born out of spontaneity, laughter, and mutual respect, making the tale of their first meeting endlessly fascinating, endlessly entertaining, and perfectly suited to the annals of comedy history. After realizing the incredible chemistry between them, Cheech and Chong began to spend nearly every day together, brainstorming ideas, joking around, and experimenting with their combined comedic style. Their creative sessions were unpredictable, messy, and endlessly entertaining. Sometimes they would start with a simple observation about life in Los Angeles, and before long, they were improvising entire skits filled with exaggerated characters, absurd situations, and dialogue that flowed effortlessly from one to the other. Chong had a way of taking Cheech's structured jokes and twisting them into something even more unexpected, adding a surreal quality that made the comedy both relatable and ridiculous at the same time. Cheech, on the other hand, sharpened Chong's improvisation, ensuring that even the wildest ideas landed with precision and maximum comedic impact. Together, they were unstoppable. Their early collaborations were not without challenges. Clubs and audiences were sometimes unsure what to make of them, and there were moments when their humor pushed boundaries far beyond what conventional comedygoers were used to. Cheech and Chong thrived on this unpredictability. They knew that the most memorable comedy often came from risk, and they embraced it wholeheartedly. Each performance was a new experiment, a chance to test how far they could push absurdity, wordplay, and improvisation. They would often incorporate props, costumes, and music into their routines, creating an immersive experience that left audiences laughing, gasping, and sometimes even scratching their heads. The magic of their partnership was evident. Two very different personalities creating a new form of comedy that felt organic, daring, and irresistibly entertaining. As word of their act began to spread, more opportunities arose. Record labels and clubs approached them, intrigued by the unique blend of humor and music they offered. Cheech and Chong seized these opportunities, recording their first comedy albums, which captured the essence of their live performances while adding a layer of polish for the listening audience. The albums were groundbreaking, mixing storytelling, character sketches, and musical interludes with a fluidity that had rarely been seen before. Fans were captivated by the authenticity and the audacity of their humor. Their first meeting at that crowded Los Angeles party now seemed almost mythical, the moment when destiny nudged two very different people together to create something timeless. One of the funniest stories from this period involves their first real experiment with improvisation. On stage, Cheech remembers it vividly. They were performing at a small, nearly empty club, and a last-minute power outage left them in near darkness. Rather than panic, Cheech whispered an idea to Chong, and the two began to improvise a skit entirely in the dark, using only their voices, exaggerated gestures, and the sounds around them. The audience, initially confused, soon realized something special was happening and erupted in laughter. That moment became a metaphor for their partnership. Unexpected situations were never obstacles, but opportunities to create comedy gold. Chong's ability to remain calm and inventive under pressure perfectly complemented Cheech's energy and quick wit. As their reputation grew, so did the stories of their antics off to Cheech. Cheech recalls times when they would spend hours driving around Los Angeles, coming up with new material inspired by the city's chaos, its characters, and its subcultures. They observed everything with a comic's eye, noting the absurdity in ordinary life and turning mundane encounters into legendary routines. Chong's musical background often influenced their sketches, adding rhythm, tone, and even unexpected punchlines to jokes that might have seemed simple on paper. Their dynamic was a perfect storm of creativity, spontaneity, and friendship. Each day spent together reinforced the connection first sparked at that crowded party, proving that humor, timing, and genuine chemistry could produce magic. Eventually, their success on the local scene led to a bigger breakthrough. Hollywood noticed. Producers were intrigued by the duo's unique comedic voice and the authenticity of their material. Cheech and Chong transitioned from small clubs to recording studios, and from there to movie sets, bringing their surreal, stoner-infused humor to wider audiences. Their films, starting with low-budget, experimental projects, became cultural landmarks, filled with the same humor, absurdity, and infectious energy that had defined their early collaboration. Fans of the albums instantly recognized the dynamic on screen. Cheech's sharp delivery combined with Chong's laid-back brilliance created a cinematic comedy experience unlike anything audiences had seen. Looking back, Cheech often marvels at how a chance encounter changed the course of his life. That one party, that simple introduction, led to decades of collaboration, friendship, and creativity that touched millions of people. Chong shares the sentiment, emphasizing that the beauty of their story lies not in careful planning, but in spontaneity and openness to opportunity. Their humor, born from observation, experience, and a shared love of absurdity, became a lens through which generations of fans could view life more lightly, laugh more freely, and find joy in the unpredictable. The tale of their first meeting is not just funny, it's inspiring, a testament to the power of connection, the magic of collaboration, and the way that two very different people can create something far greater together than either could achieve alone. Their story also highlights the importance of timing. If Cheech had arrived late to that party, or if Chong had been distracted by something else, the legendary partnership might never have happened. Instead, they connected in that precise moment, a collision of energy, humor, and creativity that would ripple through pop culture for decades. Fans are often fascinated by the details. Cheech's observational comedy meeting Chong's improvisational genius, their shared love for music, and their fearless willingness to push boundaries. Every album, every film, every sketch that followed was rooted in that initial connection, proving that great partnerships often begin in the most unexpected ways. Cheech and Chong's humor has always been more than jokes. It's a reflection of life itself, viewed through a lens of absurdity and laughter. Their first meeting was the catalyst for all of it, a spark that ignited a creative fire neither of them could have anticipated. The duo's chemistry was electric, their timing impeccable, and their shared vision unmistakable. They complemented each other in ways that were intuitive, almost magical, turning simple ideas into comedic masterpieces and ordinary moments into legendary stories. The way they first met, in a haze of music, smoke, and laughter, perfectly symbolizes the spontaneity and joy that would define their entire career, even today. When fans watch Cheech and Chong routines or films, they are witnessing the fruits of a meeting that was equal parts chance and destiny. The energy, timing, and connection, first experienced at that Los Angeles party, continue to resonate, reminding audiences that humor thrives in authenticity and collaboration. Their story is a reminder that laughter is not just entertainment, it's a way of connecting, of observing the world with curiosity and wit, and of turning life's absurdities into something unforgettable. Cheech and Chong did not just meet and become friends. They created a legacy, one laugh, one joke, and one surreal moment at a time.